Hi, welcome to the Homespun Yak.
Welcome.
We're here to talk about things again. We're here to
Yeah.
annoy people, and we're definitely not going to be talking about the NBA Finals.
No, nope, because that didn't happen. That's still yet to happen, so we won't comment.
And it may yet happen for another year until next year, and two other teams are in the finals.
That's true. Yeah, could be a couple of years before we really are excited about the finals again.
Yeah. Also, I just don't want to give a LeBron apologist any time, so I'm just gonna pretend like it just never happened. But
I'm pretty much with you, though. I mean, after watching all the games, which I did watch pretty closely, the dude complains after every single play, no matter if he made a shot or if he missed it, didn't get fouled. He thinks he got fouled. If he gets fouled, he still complains. If anybody else does that, it's a technical, like after the third time. But the entirety of the game, he just complains the whole entire time. And that's just like, he's a great player, but that stuff just drives me insane.
And that's coming from a soccer fan.
Exactly. He's basically the Neymar of NBA at the moment.
That's good. Yeah.
But anyway.
At any rate, nobody needs to know who we're talking about. That's how irrelevant it is. But we do have a series of different things that we want to discuss. Kyle wanted to play a tribute on the guitar for...
Now, I will say this.
Okay.
I don't know if your screen just froze and then it sped up your voice to an insane level to catch up to where we currently are.
I'm leaving that in.
I don't know. I don't know. Okay. I don't know if time stopped or if just the video itself paused on my end, or if I was just caught in some sort of space-time continuum. I don't know. But I was genuinely frightened for a couple of seconds there. So I think we're on track now.
Yeah.
But
we're on track. We're fine.
But go ahead. What were we talking about?
I was just telling our vast audience.
I was gone for about an hour. So.
I was telling our vast audience and your clone that you're going to be playing a song by Eddie Van Halen on your guitar.
Oh, yeah.
So go ahead and do that.
Well, unfortunately, a guitar string broke when I was practicing for today.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
And being Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day. Excuse me. The guitar shop was closed and I could not get my string repaired, so unfortunately I won't be able to play that for you.
But rest assured, he definitely was going to play that.
I can, and I was going to, and it was very easy to do.
It was incredibly easy to do, I'm sure. Yeah, but you did want to talk about it a little bit, right? The passing of the great guitarist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is the Musical Minute. This is a segment on the podcast called the Musical Minute.
We have segments that just pop up and die off the very next podcast.
Yeah, you got to switch it up. People got very short attention spans.
That's true.
Yeah, Eddie Van Halen died, I guess, last week from cancer that he was actually battling for, I don't know, like 10 plus years on and off.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I think he had tongue cancer, and that eventually spread and reappeared in other places and just continued to get worse. But he toured throughout, and I don't think a lot of people really knew A, that he had it, or B, the extent that it developed.
Yeah.
But he pretty much chain smoked his entire life, so
I was going to ask.
you'd probably put it down to that. But he was one of the greatest guitarists to ever live, I think, and he was one of my favorites just because of how unique his style was, his sound was. It's one thing to be good, but it's another thing to just hear a guitar sound and know who that person is. And he was one of those artists.
Definitely.
So I definitely appreciated his music from a very young age, and actually was fortunate enough to see Van Halen in 2007 at the Greensboro Coliseum. And this was actually the tour that David Lee Roth came back on, who's the original lead singer of Van Halen. He hadn't been with them since 1985, and then they announced they were going to do a tour in 2007, 2008. And I got tickets, and I went to their second show. I just looked up the dates again, and Charlotte was their very first show, and then they went to Greensboro, and then they did about 50 more dates into the next year, and then they continued to tour as that band, as his brother is the drummer, Alex Van Halen, and his son played bass ever since that tour up until their most recent one. So he was very much like family first, which is why they kind of ran through a lot of different singers. Well, not a lot, but they had a lot of problems with David Lee Roth initially, and Sammy Hagar joined Van Halen in the late 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. Eddie Van Halen was one of the greatest. And yeah, I've got a little clip here from his famous guitar solo. That was a track on their first album called Eruption. And this is him doing it live, and just really unique style of playing.
Cool. Yeah, that is my favorite. I mean, that's my favorite guitar solo of his. Granted, I don't know like a whole lot of them. I know a few of their songs, but not a ton of them. But yeah, as you hear that and you're like, yep, that's definitely Van Halen.
Yeah, like almost otherworldly sound, and then the style of the tapping, on the fret. Instead of actually like picking it, was kind of new at that time, and was able to give him like that really fast, but really, I don't know, like outer space type elegant sound still, even though it's very fast. So it's just really cool. And, sucks to lose another musical legend, but like I said, the music will always live on forever just because it was so good. So there it is.
Yeah. Eddie Van Halen. He was 60-something, right? Late 60s?
65, I think.
65, mid-60s. Wow. Ooh, man. It's kind of strange for me to think that he, his original cancer diagnosis was tongue cancer. You'd think you'd notice that pretty early on if your tongue is starting to look a little weird.
I mean, he had a big portion of his tongue removed apparently, and then that got it, and then I think it had just, it was cleared up, and then it reappeared somewhere else, I believe.
Yeah.
But I'd have to imagine it, the years of hard living, partying, and smoking probably contributed, but I'm sure he had, life experiences that very few people on the planet would have had. So
Volunteering,
yeah.
helping the youth.
Passing out pamphlets.
Or
things like that. Not many
out
people.
In other ways.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, there are some wild tales of Van Halen tours in the 80s and 90s that it's just it's just back when you had that rock and roll lifestyle, and if you didn't do that, you weren't cool. So you just had to basically pound a bottle of Jack Daniels while on stage and rip a bunch of cocaine lines, and while he's doing that solo, the lead singer's underneath the stage having sexual relations with young women, and it's wild. It was just a wild time.
Yeah. A lot of bands went through that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different world. From the 9 to 5, the struggle.
And even in the going off the 90s, I mean, Van Halen rose to popularity in the late 70s and 80s, but continued on into the 90s with a different singer. But kind of talking about the 90s, earlier this month was the 25th anniversary of Oasis. What's the Story? Morning Glory, their album from 1995. And I didn't even know, but I just kept seeing a bunch of like Oasis recommendation videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Just like popping up, and I've watched a ton of stuff about Oasis too, and I'd never seen these, and just it was all surrounding, like, I don't know, just talking about the impact of that album. I don't know if obviously people know like Wonderwall, and
I know that song.
Yeah, and that was on that album, yeah. But there was also like 5 other songs on there that were #1 hits, and I think it's probably the best album of the 90s. When you just look at it in its totality and the success that it had all over the world. But yeah, I wouldn't have really thought maybe so hard into it if I didn't know it was a 25th anniversary, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. I think it's the 25th anniversary of the 90s.
Yeah. Sad.
That's one way to put it. Makes me incredibly nostalgic to think back in time. It does feel like that 90s simplicity. I mean, 90s was kind of like the transition, right? I would say it's like the transition decade from having that. Really, everything else, every other decade before the 90s was kind of that simplistic version where when you talk to people and they're like, yeah, we didn't have cell phones and we didn't have the internet and all that stuff. And the 90s was that transition. And then everything from the 2000s onward, I mean, even like the early 2000s was a lot like that. But like we had no idea what was going to hit us. Like what we're doing right now over a podcast is not something that was going on in the 90s, wasn't going on any time before that either. And the fact that we can actually see each other through a pandy, by the way, that's what I've been calling the pandemic, the pandy.
Oh, okay.
I've been yelling it everywhere. Every time somebody says the pandemic, I just go the pandy. Anyway, it's catching. It's catching on.
Yeah, well,
It will. Trust me. You better credit me, folks, if you hashtag the pandy.
You heard it here first.
Physionic_PhD on Instagram.
Dash
anyway,
pandy.
yeah,
Pandy boy.
pandy boy. So yeah, it's every time I think back to the 90s, I do think about that transition period. And like nobody's ever going to experience that ever again. I mean, it's not, you can't go back. You can't go back to like removing the cell phone. I mean, you can artificially do it, but it's just not the same as like just going out in society and everybody
you can't
experiencing
forget.
the same thing. Yeah, exactly. You can't forget. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like you try to think about like a before and after period. And yeah, that's probably the transition where things were slowly building. People were figuring everything out in the 2000s. I don't know, everything just, it was like before 9/11 and after 9/11.
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally true. Yeah. For us, it was before 6th grade and after 6th grade.
Yeah. We didn't have much time to revel in the simplicity.
No.
And, the good old days.
Yeah. Do you remember what you did on 9/11? I remember distinctly what I was doing, but I mean, I was in class. I guess I'm asking, did you end up going home? Because I remember a lot of our classmates ended up going home because their parents were picking them up.
I just remember being in class and then going up. I remember Miss Cooper was my homeroom teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And going from the class I was in to her homeroom, and then the TV was on because they had those big bubble TVs in the corner.
Yeah. In like the elevated, right?
Yeah. I guess bolted into the wall.
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah. 500 pounds. So
I remember I do remember one time Mr. Baker, he bent over to get something and then just stood back up and blasted his head. He had a lot of mishaps like that. He's not a very coordinated individual. But anyway, I was in Miss Cooper's class, and then it was on, and you just saw, like, I guess, smoke billowing out. And I don't know, people were talking all around about it, obviously. And I don't know, I was like, what, 12? No, I was 11.
Yeah, 11, something like that.
It's 2001. I was 11. And I think my first impression after like a few minutes, I for some reason thought like fighter jets had shot at the building. Like that's what somebody had said, I feel like, or like fired a missile at it.
Yeah.
And then, you found out why it happened, and you see all these people on TV and around you that are like freaking out and devastated and just completely in shock and horror. Mm-hmm. And so something's bad, but you don't fully understand. Even when they say what happened, you're just like, I have no concept of like terrorism or why they would hit a building with a plane on purpose. Like, what is the building even? Like I just had so many questions, but you knew it was like a day that you would never forget based on the implications. But I don't remember if I went home early or not.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. You? Yeah, I had a similar experience. I remember walking in from my class as well, and just looking up and seeing the TV on, like you said, the billowing smoke coming out of the building. And then, yeah, you just have the news reporters just kind of confused on what's going on, and then obviously then you see more devastation, and then I think that's when it really sunk in, and people were like, "Oh, this is on purpose." I didn't understand that, but I was just kind of basing it off of other people's reactions. I don't think it ever really sunk in, though. I don't think I understood what was happening. I was 11, not 4, but I understood what was
but
happening.
But the reasons behind it, you couldn't really fathom it. It just, the concepts were foreign. As were you. Yeah. You were fairly foreign to the country itself, and I recall us trying to deport you shortly after.
From the foreign land of France. I remember distinctly Kyle got on a table and pointed at me.
I got on a desk, yeah.
And just started yelling at me. This is your fault. I'm deporting your ass.
France does not support the war in Iraq. What do you think this guy's going to do here? Okay, get him out.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, but we almost did it.
Almost. We reconciled many years later.
Yeah, we got over it.
We got our differences. Yeah, but I understood it intellectually, or as intelligent as an 11-year-old can be, but I felt the emotions. But I think everybody, it was really almost like the purest form of confusion that I've ever seen. That people just didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, I watched some footage of, people recording in New York City from all over the city that day. And people are like, oh, they hit I heard they hit the White House. And I heard, there's another plane that's coming for the Empire State Building, or, just so many different rumors that spread out of just mass chaos and confusion.
Oh, totally. Yeah. The rumors were insane. I'm sure at some point I probably thought, are they going to hit Wake Forest? Like you just don't conceptually think about it doesn't work that way.
It changed everybody's way of thinking, communicating, traveling. I don't know. It changed so many different things. Security, the internet changed. I changed. You changed.
Yeah. We had deep-seated resentment for one another for many years.
Justified on my end, okay? Justified. But there's I saw something recently. This comedian Chris DiStefano. I don't know if you've heard of him or seen him before, but he's from New York, and he has a clip on YouTube. It's probably 9-10 minutes of him telling his 9/11 story. He was in high school. It is insane. It's so ridiculously funny. I can't recommend that clip enough to people, or just him in general. Just his stand-up is great.
Okay, I'll check it out. Yeah. Well, we also wanted to talk about, speaking of 9/11, Yelp reviews. Kyle brought this to my attention. How'd you like that transition?
Yeah, that's a good one. Smooth one.
Yeah. So you want to introduce this topic?
Yeah, so there's, I guess, late last week, Yelp announced that it is putting a function on their website so that people can now select or make people known that a particular establishment or restaurant is actually racist or not. And if they get enough like support, comments, and then like a verified news outlet talking about the incidents of racism through slander or slogans or something they wrote on the wall or whatever, then they will have, like, when you look up a restaurant on Yelp, it'll say, warning, this is a racist place. So if you want to keep looking at this, just be warned. We told you this place is racist. Okay. And then and you just click okay. And then you look at the other reviews. It's what it appears to be. And I guess, I don't know if there were calls from people to be like, I can't express how much racist this place really is without this option, but I don't know. I mean, you can look at it in a couple different ways of, them trying to, in their eyes, do the right thing and bring to light cases of incidents of racist behavior or policies of a restaurant that was not, brought to light prior to this being an additional feature on Yelp. But also, we're all human beings, and this is a human being run program here. And, when people leave a bad review, they're usually triggered emotionally, and that's not when you're usually going to be at your most mentally clear. So I could see in some instances where someone is, just having a bad day and felt like, I feel like I wasn't served, or they said this to me because they don't like the color of my skin or my religion or whatever, and then just blast that out. And then everybody thinks that place is racist when in fact you just assume the worst in someone. Yeah. And now it's on there for everybody to see. And how do you come back from that? Even if you're proven innocent, once it's been on the internet for a long time, you're pretty much toast in a lot of people's eyes. I mean, the thing with like Brian Callen, I think we talked about, the comedian, like he's now countersuing the person that claimed that he sexually assaulted her 20 years ago and her husband, because he can't work anymore. Like he's just been kicked off everything that he was doing to make money. And even if the claim is false, nobody wants to touch him, and it would be the same sort of situation here. I mean, you would think the intentions are good and maybe it'll do a really good job in isolating things like this, but I don't know. I don't know the long-term implications yet. But I've never been a fan of Yelp or any sort of review for, like, of course we all look at reviews, like how many stars does this brewery get or something like that. But I don't know, to think that someone actually cares and is yearning to read your review of a place. I mean, that's just delusion to the highest degree. I mean, you're just a simpleton, a peasant, a commoner, really. I care not of your opinion. And and in a way, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's certainly one that you can look at from a lot of different angles. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are.
Well, the way I see it is that Yelp, this is all business related. So it's not, I would have a lot of issues with this if this were like specifically trying to be enforced by some like government agency. But because it's a business trying to change how they go about informing, which is literally what Yelp is, right? You're just informing about different businesses. I don't really have that much of a problem. Yeah, you're ratting. I don't really have that big of a problem. If Yelp chooses that, hey, we're going to start doing reviews where we tell everyone about a racist business, that's fine. Maybe that'll work out. Maybe that's for the benefit. I don't really care if racist businesses get ousted or get outed out there. But I think the only concern for me is kind of like what you said, right? That how do you vet that? I mean, how does Yelp actually vet that? If you have a person who's disgruntled, and this happens, this is actually going to be a discussion topic. When we discuss the next topic, you kind of touched on it with sexual assault. That, yeah, I mean, how do you actually prove that? And if a person is just disgruntled, or they feel like something was racist, and maybe the shop owner was a shitty shop owner, but they weren't necessarily being racist, they were just being a shitty person, then, how do you distinguish the two? Especially if Yelp is going to put specific emphasis on the racism part, then it does leave a black mark on that business that may be warranted and may not be. And if it is warranted, I mean, that's fantastic. That's great. I have zero issues with that. But if it's not warranted, then again, my question goes back to the vetting process. How do you actually determine what is and what isn't accurate? I think ultimately, if you have many reports and maybe even some official sites that show that this business is racist, then yeah, I mean, throwing that up there is I think part of the review process. You want people to know, you want people to be informed so that they can make a proper decision. Like if I knew that a business that I go to was deemed racist, obviously I'm not going to figure that out, right? I mean, well, okay, racism, right? In the term that a lot of people are using now is that power dynamic. So racism can't be against white people. That's a whole nother discussion. But my point being that, like, assuming that I can't experience racism, then I'm never going to understand if a business is racist. So I would need those reviews, or I would need like a grouping of reviews from a minority group to tell me, hey, this business is racist. And if I see a trend of like, if you're seeing like 12 reviews out of 31 that are saying, hey, this business is racist, it's definitely going to make me pause and be like, this is definitely consistent. But on the other hand, if it's just one person that says that this business is racist, I don't want to like just throw their comment out the window. But on the other hand, I need to see like consistency. I need to see when there's no hard evidence, you need to have some level of consistency so that you can be like, okay, well, I don't want to risk it, so I'm just gonna go somewhere else. So yeah, I don't have a problem with the overall idea. I think Yelp is trying to be more woke. They're trying to be more woke, and if that's in their business model, then that's cool. I mean, go for it and just see how it pans out ultimately long term.
Yeah, it's definitely their decision to do it, and I just don't think you can be 100% accurate one way or the other all the time, with situations like this. So it could lead to issues. Hopefully they're not issues that outweigh the positives, I guess, that could come from it. So interesting to see how it will develop over the coming days, weeks, months.
Yeah, for sure. And on a related note, somewhat related, not related to racism, but related, well, you'll see the connection.
Okay.
I'm going to introduce, it's a 6-minute video. I've spliced it. I'll create a link so that people can see what are you drinking? Marmognon de la région de la Révolution.
I am drinking a French wine, Vouvray. which is a region in the Loire.
Bien
In the Loire Valley. It is a grape is called Chenin Blanc. Chenin Blanc. And it's one of my favorite white grapes. Okay. It's phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Okay.
Great minerality, great body, very nice drive.
Wait, what's minerality? I mean, I understand it's minerals, but I get that part. But like, how do you taste that?
It's just like the feeling that you get on your mouth. It's like it's like a stone, like limestone.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Like not necessarily the texture, but just the vivacity, the richness, the vibrance, good acidity usually with that, and just clean. The quality is very clean, and it's great. It's great on its own. It's good with food too.
Okay. All right. Noted.
Vouvray. I highly recommend it. If you see it on a label, VOUVRAY, that's the place, but the grape is always going to be Chenin Blanc.
And where do you get that typically?
You can pretty much always get it from an independent wine retail shop. Okay. Total Wine would have it as well.
Okay. All right. I might look that up. I've recently been looking more into white wines. My significant other can only have white wine because she gets massive migraines from red wine. So
interesting.
So
what red wine is she drinking? If you do not mind me inquiring.
Shit from Shit Creek. She legitimately.
Is it really called Shit's Creek?
No. She actually has not had red wine, I think, in years at this point, because of that specific effect. But you think potentially it's because it's a shitty wine? Okay. I mean, I'll run it by her. If you've got a recommendation on a red wine, I will run it by her and see if she wants to risk getting a migraine.
I don't want to. I don't want her to get a migraine, but at the same time, I don't want her to miss out on a world of red wine that she might fall in love with.
Right.
And you may share in that love.
Oh yeah. I prefer red wine.
And I mean, a lot of the bigger companies, like, I'm sure you've seen Yellowtail and these big brands where it's mostly just sugar they dump into it. And I'm serious.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's called chapitalization, where you add sugar to get the right sort of pH or balance that you want in the winemaking process. But yeah, I mean, it's just swill is what they call it.
Okay. But
she might have been drinking swill.
Okay. I'll ask her. I'll ask her what the
ask her
a few of the
types.
Okay. I'll be interested if it does come back with swill, if that's what she says, or if
she might like biodynamic wines, organic wines. I mean, people say, like, people who have like said, I can't drink red wine, and then you introduce them to biodynamic certified or organic certified wines. They're like, oh, that's the only thing I can drink, when, in reality, does it make that much of a difference? I mean, I'm sure it does to a degree, but I think a lot of it is mental. People want to be like, oh, I only drink organic and I only drink biodynamic or natural wine. But anyway, it's a whole thing. People haven't really figured it out. People are like, it's the sulfites that give me hives, and I need wines with no sulfites, and that's just not a thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
All wines have sulfites to a degree. Some add sulfites, some minimally. So it just depends, but they don't really give you a count on the bottle. But,
isn't that related to hangovers as well or something like that? The sulfites?
I'm not sure. I know sugar content has a big part to play in severity of hangover as well. Mm-hmm. Sulfites could. I'm just not sure.
Okay.
Because like if you crush a lot of like, I don't know, like amaretto or something really sweet, your hangover is going to be an absolute nightmare as in comparison to just like vodka, gin and tonics or vodka soda, something that's not as sweet.
Yeah, that's what I usually opt for. Gin and club soda, actually. I can't believe it took me like a year for me to figure out that tonic had calories. And then I was like, well, I'm going to nix that from now on.
Yeah, that would explain your...
obesity? Yeah.
Rapid weight gain, yeah.
Everybody initially thought it was muscles, and then it turned out it was all fat.
Ooh, no, all fat. Yeah.
All right, so this topic is a heavy one, and I think. So we've
already talked about 9/11.
Yeah, so. It can't get much heavier than that.
No.
And racism.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about sexual assault. That's what we're going to talk about.
Good.
Yeah, I know. What better than two white men to discuss sexual assault? But I've truncated
in fact educate you on sexual assault, to mansplain you, okay?
To mansplain. That's literally it. Yeah. So listen up, folks. So the video, if you're listening on the podcast, don't worry, you'll still be able to understand everything. You don't have to watch the video on screen with us, but the video was like 20 minutes long. I truncated it to about 6 minutes, where they cover 2 or 3 questions. The way it works is unlike last week, where we had this couple, right, that went through and we kind of saw their relationship and whatnot, or their past relationship. Well, this is called middle ground. So this is where they have 3 people that are for this particular topic and 3 people that are against this particular topic. And then they debate, or they discuss with one another. And this is discussing the metoo movement. So that's what we're gonna listen to now, and we're gonna interject. Kyle, just let me know if you want me to pause at particular points.
If you're on any kind of social media, I am sure you've seen the hashtag #MeToo.
Okay, so just going to pause here because they've got some written stuff. The Me Too movement was founded by Tarana Burke in 2006 to help survivors of sexual violence, particularly young women of color, find pathways to healing.
Women are using 2 words on social media to identify themselves as survivors.
The movement gained widespread attention. Don't worry, I'm not going to have to do this the whole time. Widespread attention in 2017 when high-profile women began speaking out about their experiences.
Survivors of sexual harassment and assault.
If I were to say Me Too, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Good intentions, bad ramifications.
When I hear the term Me Too, I think of some people that have been rightfully taken down. I also think of some people that have been wrongfully canceled.
A lot of men are confused about what it really means, and they take it as sort of like an anti-men thing or like an attack on men, when it's really definitely not.
Okay, so now before we get into like the specific questions I end up asking, what are your first impressions of the Me Too movement?
My first impressions were, I think overall they were good because it encouraged people to speak out against injustices that were happening, had happened, currently happening to them, without ramifications of losing a job or some sort of, like in the 80s, probably if you worked in an office on Wall Street or something like that, if someone like came by and slapped your ass or something, like it probably didn't go to HR even. It was probably just like, that's just guys being guys, and like,
Right.
I'll just go home, and yeah, it sucks, but it is what it is. And now it's like, it's not that way anymore. And you're not going to be, shamed or made to feel bad for speaking out about it. That was my initial thing. And I mean, it hasn't really changed much from that, but, I think the way in which it has evolved, if it has evolved, it's when you look at specific cases now where maybe some people are posting things without evidence just on Twitter, and people immediately taking that as fact and saying that person's done forever without a fair trial or without anybody taking their side of the story seriously at all. Yeah. So it becomes a little bit one-sided in certain cases. But overall, I think it really did a lot of good for women who felt like they just didn't have a voice in that regard.
Yeah.
Especially in the workplace. I think that was what I saw it was good at.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel it was a necessity. It's a good thing it's around. Okay. So this is the first question, and then these people are going to be debating.
The Me Too movement is a witch hunt.
Okay, so now for the people who are just listening, all three, like three people and three people, they're both in two different groups. Again, one is against, one is pro, one is for. And now when they say that, when the director says, hey, in this case, the Me Too movement is a witch hunt, then they have to decide if they believe that. If they do, then they walk to the chairs that are in front of them, and then they discuss it just with the people that first walked up, and then all of them discuss it afterwards. Okay, and just real quick again, the definition for a witch hunt is, according to these video producers, is an attempt to find and punish people whose opinions are not popular. Okay, again, an attempt to find and punish people whose opinions are not popular.
Yeah, I feel like every good intention in the world in the beginning, but I feel like it's spiraled a bit, and there's been some people that have been sort of wrongfully canceled, as we say. Aziz Ansari comes to mind, who was canceled for not basically reading the mind of the woman who withdrew consent after having sex with him. I feel like people shouldn't be collateral damage, and rape accusations really destroy someone's life.
It's a paradigm now where you have men as the universal perpetrator and women as the universal victim. That's for me what it's become. And I just think it's hugely problematic. And I mean, how can you vilify like half the population?
Men are not even allowed to be a part of this dialogue. A lot of men are abused in corporations. So it isn't just about women, it is about the abuse of power.
Can I have my disagreeers come join the conversation?
I have a big issue with the term witch hunt. It feels like a very convenient political term to sort of distance ourselves from what's really happening in the Me Too movement. So
what would you term it as then?
I think it's a movement to examine the power structures and the very real ways that people are falling victim to predation that is upheld by a criminal justice system that allows it to continue to be the case.
But I think that there is a similarity when you consider the fact that many people who support the hashtag and the movement, they really do set aside due process, which is really what happened to women during the actual witch hunts. I think that a lot of times when you see hashtags like believe all women, believe women, and there's no nuance, and that just has to be the case.
But when we get into, you're not saying believe some women, or you're not saying not all men, that we're not really getting at the core of the issue, which is the abuse. And it's not saying like men are all bad or anything like that, but it is saying that maybe we should examine the people who are in power. And since most of those people in power are men, then perhaps we should examine the dynamics and gender and everything like that.
I fear.
Okay, so that was that first question. Again, I had to splice certain aspects. It's funny that I actually sort of agree with both sides. I mean, one, I support the Me Too movement. Two, I think that the pro Me Too movement, like that one woman was focused a little too much on the definition of witch hunt. I do think that the Me Too movement is a witch hunt, but that's not a bad thing. I think that's a great thing. That's the powerful aspect of it, that you're trying to hunt, quote unquote, hunt, usually men. Well, actually, let's be real. It's pretty much only men. When we're talking about specifically the Me Too movement, not that men can't be sexually assaulted, but the Me Too movement is surrounding women, as we saw by the definition at the beginning. So I do think that it's a justified witch hunt, that it makes sense that having this witch hunt is a necessity, like I said before. So I don't consider that to be a negative, but I think you even mentioned this at the outset, that I agree with some of the other women that were on the anti side, saying that, yeah, it very much is. There are situations where there's this cancel culture of like, oh, this person was accused, therefore we cancel them. And you were talking about, what was Brian Callen was his name?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he's, as far as I know, he's innocent, but he lost everything, or at least all of his employment. So, I mean, clearly it's damaged his life quite a bit just by somebody just opening their mouth and saying, hey, I was sexually assaulted, which may, at least with me not knowing anything, the assumption that I'm going with is that that was not the case, or at least there's no proof. At least there's no proof that that's the case. So the idea of innocent until proven guilty, I mean, just like in public opinion, that just seems to never pan out. It's like people just go with their emotions and they don't take a step back to examine what reality is. But the Me Too movement as a whole makes complete sense. And I do think that men should be held accountable. I think that a lot of things that we've kind of perpetuated over decades of time, what's acceptable. I mean, you gave an example of like what might be acceptable in the 80s, right? Like that's never really been acceptable. Just women just never have had a platform by which that they can actually call out these actions and say, hey, that's incredibly fucked up. And now that they do, I didn't really enjoy that guy's explanation of his quick point about saying that men also go through stuff. I mean, okay, I mean, I agree. Like, yeah, men go through stuff, but like men get taken seriously, or maybe not with sexual assault. I will say probably not as much with sexual assault, because in male culture, it's very much like, what, a girl like grabbed you? Like, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's hashtag high five.
Yeah, exactly. So it is different. So I understand that aspect, but I think men struggle with a lot less of that being suppressed than women do. So I think he's missing the point that Me Too is specifically to raise women up to a point where they are equal with men and where they can actually be heard. So in that regard, I disagree with his point, but overall, it's kind of a mixture between the two.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Yeah, I can definitely see both sides, and I think that's, my take on a good amount of things is, especially today, is like, I can see where this side's coming from, and I can also see where this side is coming from. And, with the side that is anti, when we talked about people being canceled based on just a simple accusation, I think you have a huge push now from, because the media really blows these things out of control and kind of dictates and gives platform to these things, and allows these situations to spiral out of control on a more massive global, like, magnifying glass on the particular situation. And then if you have sponsors, if you work for a corporation, if you work for, if you're on a TV show or whatever, this is especially in Hollywood, then you're done. And the reason why you're seeing Joe Rogan and Joey Diaz and all these comedians leaving LA is because they're like, we don't need LA anymore you don't need LA to be famous anymore. Right. It used to be you go to LA and you become an actor, you become someone. Now you can do that from your own home. I mean, they've established themselves that way in LA, but now they're like looking around and they're like, it's just, I want to be in control of everything. And I can do that. I actually don't need LA or someone looking over my shoulder, or if one thing comes out about something I did 30 years ago, I'm not going to get canceled. I'm just going to move on and let people online argue about it. And people in real life don't give a shit. So I don't know. That's probably way off topic, but that's just more like the ramifications of when it can go to extreme on the negative side. And that's very unfortunate, because you're then taking away from credible stories from women who have really been done wrong, And I think that's majority of the stories, but the smaller ones where it's like, wow, you've actually made something up to ruin somebody's career because you just don't like them. Those get blown up, sometimes even bigger. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. And nothing happens to those people.
No, nothing.
That's the crazy part.
It only happens to the person they accuse. Even when we know it's false, they can't get any work. That's why everybody's just like, I'm just doing a Patreon now. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. So 2020 has been wild for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on.
I fear false accusation.
So that's the topic we were just touching on, but they're going to touch on it a lot more.
All right.
I fear false accusations.
I am a big proponent of equality with women. I don't want to be, because I'm on the anti-MeToo side here, classified as a misogynist. I believe that the MeToo movement has swung way too far, and a lot of men that I know are deeply concerned about, and I refer to the Harvard Business Review study that just came out 3 months ago that suggested that 58% of men are deeply concerned about being falsely accused. That's changed my behavior in my life. I will no longer date somebody in my industry. What's going to happen in 6 months or in a year from now when we've had a great relationship and it comes to its natural course of end, and something happens where she's got this idea in her head that I did something to wrong her? All she needs to say is, he sexually assaulted me, he did something, and then it's he said, she said, and I lose my job, I lose my income, I can no longer support my boys.
That does not happen.
It absolutely happens.
It does not happen.
It happens every single day.
No, mostly people are pushed off. Okay, it could happen.
I think that you're talking about, well, men are scared now to, be alone or whatever, and I think that's really just like men finally being held accountable or maybe not even held accountable, just like be aware of the space that you're taking up and your actions. So yeah, we're talking about false accusations, and I've been falsely accused of sexual assault, and absolutely nothing has happened to me. My reputation is not ruined. I can get a job, I can go to school because I didn't sexually assault anyone.
With all due respect, you're at a much different place in your life than other people who have careers, who have jobs, who have families. You're a college student, and you are not at a place right now where you're carrying those responsibilities.
But I think like, why are you, I mean, if you know you're a good dude and you don't inappropriately touch women, like what?
He doesn't know the women are good women.
So for the past 30 years, I've been working in corporations, and I've worked with a lot of phenomenal, incredible, dynamic, powerful women. Maybe 10 years ago, I was going on business trips and we were having dinners and, you know, people are having drinks and things can happen. I'm not suggesting that anything inappropriate happened. But today, that would not be something that I would entertain. It's not about me being uncomfortable. It is that 58% of men, that's 60% almost of men today say that they are uncomfortable being in a business relationship with a woman where they cannot be on a one-to-one. And that is impacting women in their ability to progress in corporations. And I don't want to see that.
I fear false accusations because when we actually look at what a false accusation is, it's an incomplete accusation.
Or it's a lie. It can be a lie too.
Or it's an accusation where the police were unable to obtain all necessary information in order to pursue whatever truth was there. You're right, there could be a small percentage of lies in there, but we also can't get blinded by what we think or want to think a false accusation is because it's politically convenient, because we want to, you know, make it sound like, well, it's your responsibility to ensure your economic future, so, you know, take it as a serious threat that I don't want to be with women in a space because of what's happening. I feel like all of us are talking about real harm, real harm. And so it's sad that we talk about false accusations and we start throwing all these distractions out there when there's real harm that we could probably all be really good at solving together.
Okay, so that's the end. I just wanted to go through two segments of this thing. I will say that one guy citing the Harvard study, or Harvard Review, or whatever you want to call it, saying that men are uncomfortable, that honestly, that doesn't mean anything to me, because that doesn't actually separate men that try and do things correctly, and they feel uncomfortable. That doesn't separate them from the men who would love to keep the status quo, and therefore they are uncomfortable. Those are all put together into one lump sum. So, you know, you don't know what percentage of those men are people that should be held accountable. So the fact that they are uncomfortable is exactly the point. I mean, that's literally the point of the Me Too movement. Then the other guy steps in and also says something that I find kind of ironic, is he said, well, if you're a good man, then you have nothing to worry about. And I find that comical because that's what conservatives use, that exact same point about being stopped by the police. If you've done nothing wrong, then you don't have to worry about it. But yet people still get shot. People still get killed for literally just existing, just being in that place, in that spot with that person. In this situation, talking about men and women. In other situations, you're talking about minorities and police officers. And I find it funny that a person who I would imagine, and I'm certainly speculating, but I imagine a person who is more liberal leaning in this situation is using the exact same argument that's also bullshit for conservatives, you know, in police brutality situations. So I find that comical. But yeah, the point that, and then the one woman said, but that doesn't happen, you know, talking about false accusations, which is just, I mean, it's so, you really have, I'm just going to leave it pretty tame. You have to educate yourself a little bit more on that if you genuinely believe that doesn't happen.
That's just the thing about being so on one side of any argument, is that you're blind to the possibility that you could be wrong,
right?
Or that there's any leeway at all with your stance on what you're believing in currently. And yeah, that's why it's good to look at stuff like this, and good for them to talk to one another and get different opinions, because before that, I mean, it seems like they were only talking to people who fortified and, were in unison with what they believed in. And they're like,
that's a good
oh my
point.
God, there's people who believe that this is wrong or that this is actually a good thing. Like, what?
Yeah.
Let me find out why. And that's good that they did that. And, maybe some of them walked away and they're like, maybe I shouldn't be too militant on my position. And maybe I should consider, the possibility that they could be right on X, Y, and Z, but I still don't agree with them on these other things too. So that's just more of what needs to happen around things like the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter, police brutality, these hot button issues that it's just like, you have to be with us or you're dead. Or you're just an asshole, or you're done. And it's like, I just would rather fully understand the entirety of the situation before I just emotionally jump to one side,
Yeah.
And that's what people are doing with politics as well, and really with everything. But yeah, when the Me Too movement first happened, I think probably every guy was like, man, in my life, were there moments where I was, guilty of, nothing crazy, but you try to think back to times where you're like, man, was I too pushy in this scenario, or was I too disrespectful, dismissive to a woman, not just in a sexual way, but, just in conversation or at work or something like that. It really caused me to reflect and look at different situations that I've been in my life, and just be like, I don't know, not saying that I was, but I'm just saying, you definitely for the first time stopped and you can kind of look back on your own life. And I think that's a positive that it brought, is self-reflection. And then, what could you do going forward to, not necessarily live in fear. I don't feel like I need to live in fear, but I want to be respectful to women in every situation. And, maybe I wasn't before. Or as much as I could have been potentially, but I'm certainly not going to be scared, because I don't know. There's a lot of different angles you can look at this from.
Yeah. Yeah. No matter what, though, false accusations do occur. We've talked about them on the podcast. And that doesn't at all mean that the Me Too movement should be shut down or anything like that. I think for the most part, the Me Too movement has been fantastic. And I'll say it again, it's been a necessity, a necessary good that's come of this. But you can't have blinders on about everything. You can't also just ignore the minority of situations that are unfair, that people get accused and they didn't do anything, and then their whole life is ruined. I mean, that kind of stuff sticks with people. It certainly sticks with that person probably for the rest of their life. And it might even impact their relationships with other people. To have somebody have their character questioned like that. I mean, maybe their friends might think back, or might I don't know. You would hope not. I mean, you would hope that your friends and your family would be pretty confident in what they assess as who you are, and hopefully they wouldn't believe in that accusation. But you also never know. But I mean, when it comes to like businesses or sponsorships, kind of what you were alluding to earlier, a lot of people are trying to become a lot more independent because they don't want to deal with the cancel culture, the potential that they say something. I imagine that's especially true for like comedians, which we've talked about a few comedians now that have had sexual assault allegations, and one of them ended up like, which is so remarkably hard. A matter of fact, I'll throw in the name Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber also had a sexual assault allegation, and he had proof. He had receipts showing that he was not at the location that he was being accused. And the same with the Chris D'Elia situation. And again, like, if anybody has more information on this, that I'm getting something wrong, feel free to correct me. But this is all based off of my understanding of these situations, that these people had ended up proving that they were not guilty of this. Like, they weren't even around. There was no possibility that they could have done it. And it's absolutely stunning that criminal charges aren't then processed, especially like maybe you have it, you can't prove it one way or another, right? So you say, okay, well, if you can't prove it one way or another, there's going to be no criminal charges across the board. But if a man then does prove, hey, I didn't do this and I have proof, here's proof, then I think it's up to it should be criminally charged. It should be then turned around so that you push people away that are that just say that because of, I think you mentioned this, that they just don't like that person, or they were rejected by that person, or whatever it might be, that you have some sort of repercussion so that people are dissuaded from just randomly blurting things out like that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, there's got to be, there's punishment for someone, like Harvey Weinstein, and for good reason, obviously.
Yeah, rightly so.
But if you're making these accusations against someone who's completely innocent of those crimes, there has to be some sort of repercussion for your action and your how you negatively impacted their life in that particular time frame, and probably until the rest of time if they're a very, important or influential celebrity in particular. And the same goes for people who try to pose as a different race. Have you seen the the most recent person who did this?
Oh.
She's a professor at I don't know for sure. I think George Washington University or something or I don't know. It was a pretty reputable university, and she had been there for over a decade, I believe, as a professor.
Yeah.
And she was saying that she was like of Dominican and African descent, and she had curly black hair, and was pretty tan, and obviously got away with it based on her looks and her name. And she went by the name of, I think it was Jessica La Bombarera, and really was a white woman from the Midwest, a Jewish white woman who came to this place and decided, you know what, I'm not a white person, I am a black person, and I'm going to now sort of take advantage of this situation. And and then they're like, you're white. And I don't know, I feel like she should have something against her as well for just, I don't know. It's just, that was the wildest thing to me, how long she got away with that.
Do you know how they found out?
I'm looking it up now. It's pretty wild. It's a wild story. Jessica Krug is her name, but Jessica La Bombalera was her, which is a wild name to begin with, like an unbelievable name, like a parody name that you would do to like a Latino person. Afro-Latina professor admits she's a white Jewish woman who pretended to be black.
Why?
Why did she admit?
No, I mean, why? I mean, sure, I'm interested in that too, but like, why? Why would she pretend to be black? I don't.
Well,
it's such a weird thing. Like, why do people do that kind of stuff? But I mean, on the other hand, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to think nowadays. I really don't. I really just I just close. I kind of retreat into the umbrella, the comfort of science, and then I defend that like I will die. You know, I will die on that spear, on that sword of science. So if anybody assaults that, I'm very confident. I'm incredibly confident that that is accurate. But like, I don't know with these kind of social ideas that we're like being presented with, like what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Like I want to be as kind and as inclusive as possible. But like with this situation, you know, like I don't know, like I understand, like the way I react to it and the way you're reacting to it, it's like, it seems ridiculous that a person would be like, hey, I just want to be black, so I'm just going to tell people I'm black. But I don't know what, like if 5 years from now I'm going to be considered socially insensitive or worse for thinking that it's ridiculous. I don't know what to think anymore. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's just every day something outrageous happens, and it's just like, well, tomorrow something even more insane is going to happen, so let's just roll with it. This was her biography that she posted while a professor, like on the website, I guess, when you can look at the bio. Let's see. She is unrepentant and an unreformed child of the hood.
Whoa, all right.
And it is just, and she's like, I'm on the Harlem Cop Watch. Just everything I'm doing is consumed in the struggle for my community in El Barrio. And I just don't know. It's not really saying why she decided to do it. She doesn't really say. She's just very apologetic that she was a leech to the black community for 15 years.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. These kinds of stories are never going to end. But unfortunately, what happens is if you get the opposite, the other side that doesn't agree with, let's say, Black Lives Matter, for example, they end up like gravitating to these isolated, just bonkers stories and saying, look, see, you know, they don't even know their own community, like stuff like that. And it's just like so hurtful to the entire group.
Yeah. It's just so hard ridiculous to get the full picture on anything. So it's like, I just don't know how, like I said, I don't know how people can be all in on one side or one story or one person. Unless it's like really a cut and dry thing, which some things definitely are. But
you hope they remain.
Yeah, they won't be in the future. If Biden gets in, they won't be. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I like how Trump released that statement about Columbus Day, saying,
"Oh God, what'd he say?"
Oh, just like White House. Like he released this statement. It was like a written statement from the White House saying, we recognize
Happy Columbus
Christopher Columbus coming over on the Maria Pinta Santa Jose.
Santa Maria. Santa Maria.
And that was like a momentous occasion, and it was like a huge landmark moment in history and all that stuff. And then saying, activists and whatnot are trying to change this reality and stuff like that. And oh man, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, he's just the ultimate troll.
He really is. He really is.
The ultimate troll. He knew that would just light people up on fire if he said anything about.
Totally, but he also knew that would specifically like get his base, right? Of being like, yeah, well. Like we agree, like I'm glad he said something, and, because it used to be Columbus Day, or at least maybe in certain areas it still is Columbus Day. I don't know what the deal is with that, but ultimately, like some places
my calendar, it is.
Okay. Calendar from 1968.
It's the Chevy calendar.
2020. 2020.
Check your facts, buddy. It's Columbus Day.
He just points at a calendar. Dodge Ram.
I'll bring it out.
It's my truck calendar.
Yeah. What the hell do you think Columbus drove when he got to America?
Pure 415 horsepower octane.
Did it have a Hemi? Fuck yeah, dude.
Oh man, that's too good. Did it have a Hemi?
You think Columbus drove a Fiat? Hell no. Woo, yeah. So we got 9/11, racism, sexual assault, Columbus.
And people faking
Anything
being
else?
black.
Yeah, people faking being black. Oh, well, to wrap up the sports second, that's another segment, sports second. I thought it was pretty crazy to see Dak Prescott go out with a gruesome and horrific, what would that be called?
Thoughts and prayers.
Snapping of the leg. What do they call that? A compound fracture?
I believe that's right.
And Alex Smith, as I told everybody, had that happen to his leg 2 years ago, gruesomely.
Yeah. And he came back.
And he had to have 17 surgeries. And he came back the same day that Dak had a similar injury. That was kind of crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Except I think Alex Smith also broke his tibia.
Yeah, his was a little bit more severe, but if nothing had gone wrong in the surgery, he would have been able to come back obviously way quicker.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Like, dude almost lost his leg and died, but
he's back, and he played like trash.
Yeah, he did play like trash. I can imagine you'd be pretty scared, but I mean, that team is just garbage.
Oh, yeah.
Just garbage.
The Washington
Panthers won
team.
again.
Yeah.
3-2.
3-2, going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you heard it here first. But yeah, Dak Prescott. But he's only going to be out like 4 to 6 months.
Yeah, they just have to. They just have to glue his foot back on.
Weld his bone back. Yeah.
Seriously. Oh man.
Yeah, that was. That's scary to see. You're like, oh, it's just, his foot's just out of his shoe, and you're like, nope, that's not what it is.
Nope, that's not what it is.
His foot is just sideways.
Yeah.
Against his leg.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that was a pretty gruesome injury. But the Cowboys won behind Andy Dalton.
Yep, they're back.
Yeah. They're back.
They beat the
barely beating the Giants.
0-5 Giants. Yeah.
The Giants that were averaging 17 points a game. Yeah,
and
right.
Barely made field goal. I mean, that dude tried to miss the field goal. It just barely snuck in.
Yeah.
God, I was watching State won as well this weekend.
Nice.
And I was hoping for a perfect weekend in sports, which rarely happens in my world. Being a State and a Panthers fan, rarely that happens. But they both won, and I was like, are the Heat going to win tonight?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Make it a perfect day? And I thought, you know what? I think they will. So I bet all the money I had on the Heat.
How you doing?
So I really... Well, I forgot about it until I just said it.
Kyle's taking a moment.
But you can help me out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I can help you. I'm going to see you.
Spot me a couple of G's, cool G's.
Cool G's. Yeah, on my PhD student salary. Yeah.
Sweet.
No problem, man. I'm gonna see you
Right
here in Baltimore begging.
Oh yeah, tomorrow.
With a sign. Yeah.
I'm leaving right now.
Okay. Yeah. The New York Football Giants, I believe they had they were averaging like 13 points or something like that, or 12 points or 17 points a game of offense, and they ended up scoring 30 something. So that should be a pretty strong indictment against the Dallas football Cowboys.
Yeah, they're trash.
That whole division is terrible. That whole division is straight terrible. I would not be surprised if the Cowboys went 6-10 or something like that and won the division
and got in the playoffs. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah.
And the Panthers they win like 9 games and don't get in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we really still don't know who the best team in the NFC South is. Everybody has like the same record now.
Yeah. Yeah, that is strange.
Well, the Saints, I guess, play tonight.
I think I think the Saints will come. Well, Saints are the Bucks, obviously. Well, maybe the Falcons. You never know.
Yeah, don't sleep on the Falcons.
Don't sleep on them. They'll screw it up.
0-5.
Yeah, 0-5. But that was just like a preseason.
They got a brand new coach. It's fine.
Did they really? They fired Dan Quinn? Really? Oh, I didn't even see that. I didn't see the breaking news. I've been avoiding ESPN for the last 2 or 3 days, because of
because you knew it was going to be nothing but Lakers coverage.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, when I saw even at halftime last night.
Oh, that's exactly when I stopped.
I'm done.
I was like, halftime. They were down. They were down at one point by 30. I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm out.
It's over. Yeah, got to tune out for at least a week now.
Yep.
From ESPN.
Yep. About all the analysts suddenly flipping script and being like, LeBron James is just as good as he always has been. He's truly the GOAT.
Yeah, and his I didn't watch the ceremony or whatever, but I caught just a clip of him saying his speech as he got the MVP of the finals. He's like this team just wanted respect. The coach just wanted respect. The owners, the fans just wanted respect. And I want my damn respect. And everybody's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, when did people not give you respect? I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah, saying that, I mean, to me, he's a top 10 player of all time.
Yeah.
Which I don't see how that's disrespectful, but all right.
Yeah, I don't see how, yeah.
But then again, he's not talking to me.
Anyway, I don't know. Pretty sensitive. I mean, Kevin Durant made a fake Twitter to respond to trolls about him.
That is ridiculous, yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. Like, your team wins and you make it about you again. It's just strange. But anyway, another thing about the state football game that I just remembered, apparently I was the last to find out. I had no idea that Ruffin McNeil is on our coaching staff now.
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, it happened.
But I just saw like it cut to him on the sideline because he was at Virginia for a while as well, and that's who we played.
Yeah.
And they're like, Ruffin McNeil. And they're like, I was like, what? He's like his title is special advisor to the head coach.
Special advisor to the head coach. Yeah.
I was like, why not?
Yeah, why not? He did real well with the ECU Pirates. So why not? We had
and they wrongfully let him go.
Wrongfully
that
after
was behind a petition you signed.
Several terrible seasons. Yeah.
Well, they've bounced back.
Have they? Have they? I have not.
No,
I have not looked up their scores.
I don't know. Actually, I don't believe
I
they
know.
have.
I know. Last
don't
weekend.
Quote me on it.
I'm quoting you on it. But last week they were up actually by like 2 touchdowns on someone on a really good team. Really good. Now I just need to figure out how to get there. What conference are we in? Have we been booted from the American Conference? East Carolina defeats South Florida. We are now 1-2. Well, not we.
Oh.
I still don't identify with any teams. East Carolina 44-24 defeats South Florida, who I said was a good team. They had won one game this season, so I was lying. But
who did they lose? Who did they lose to?
South
UCF?
Florida.
No, who did East Carolina lose?
Oh, hold on. Who has ECU lost to? Wow. Okay. Way to just like not show me ESPN. Okay.
Yeah. ESPN has not been showing records or scores lately. And that's another reason to boycott.
A liberal
ESPN,
conspiracy of competition
I was like,
trophies?
what is the NFC South rankings? And they're like, Panthers are third at 2-3. I'm like, it's been a day, bitch. We're 3-2. Okay? Update your shit. I hate ESPN. I hate ESPN with a passion. Their top 10 has sucked my whole life, and I hate them. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, we played number 13 at UCF. We got close to winning at 51-28. And then we played Georgia State Panthers.
Oh.
So not Georgia Tech, not Georgia, Georgia State.
Not Georgia. Oh, okay.
We lost 49-29. So, and then now, but now we've played USF and we won 44-24. So
Getting back on track.
The ECU Pirates, not we. The ECU Pirates are now on
again.
track, and now they will be playing Navy next.
Ooh, and they always do swell against the Navy, right?
I think we've lost every game, or they have.
Jesus, he can't stop.
I can't stop identifying with this terrible team.
Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah. Well, anyway, You want to call it quits here? Has been enough of a sports second.
I think so.
Updating random people on the ECU Pirates. Even I didn't care.
No, he didn't care.
Nope. All right. Well, we covered a lot of topics. I'll be posting the clips at some point. Thanks for stopping by, folks, as usual. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. My brain has definitely reached the brain dead moment.
Well, lucky enough for you, I'm here to talk about the rules of disc golf.
As
It'll
usual,
stimulate
I will be
you
leaving.
back to life.
Stimulate you back to life.
Back to life. Okay.
Yeah, I love people like that actually exist like that. There are people that exist like that.
There are.
They find that kind of stuff so incredibly fascinating, and they have no concept that nobody else gives a shit about what they're talking about. Which, hey, it might be us, actually. We may fall into exactly that category, but I think it's so funny. Like disc golf or like marble, I don't know, competitions or
Marble
something.
races?
Yeah, marble races or something like that. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Catch you next week. See ya.
Bye.